edition of Bet the Edge on Thursday, March 30th. Thank you to everyone watching on our NBC Sports YouTube channel. Coming up, Phil McNulty, chief football writer for the BBC, will join us. He has his finger on the pulse of the Premier League, and he also just published what looks like a great read. Drew, I'm excited to talk to you, to share a screen with you. Like anytime we get to share a screen, I feel like fireworks happen. And last week we cashed some massive bets on international break. How you doing, man?
Great. Viva la France.
Yeah.
High five to Brad for that call. Talk about a sweat-free winner. My goodness gracious. What a good look, man. The international break was pretty uneventful. I didn't really see anything that like really shocked the world, other than the European like qualification. Like the fact that is such entertaining television, just tells you how good a shape the sport of soccer is in right now. Like the fact that you can sit down and watch Euro qualifications is just awesome. So well-timed break. Excited for the resumption of play here, and boy, there's so much going on. I don't even know where to start. Where do you want to start?
Well, today we're gonna dive into the Premier League. We're in the home stretch, so to help us do so, we're gonna welcome in Phil McNulty to the pub.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Phil, thank you for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure. So we talked about it. International break is over. It always feels kind of random to me, right? Like we're just chugging along through the season and then bam, international break. Even more so this year, because we had the World Cup. So now let's talk about big picture of the Premier League, right? Do you think there are any teams that can creep up into the top four, or any teams that might be in danger of falling out of that top four placement?
I think at the moment, I have a little fancy that Liverpool might just go north, as you said to me, about into the top four. They've got Luis Diaz back today in full training. He may play some part against Manchester City on Saturday. But that's going to be a really intense fight for the top four, because Tottenham are involved as well, a club in crisis, even though they're fourth. Manchester United, Newcastle and Liverpool. But Liverpool have got a clear run at it now. They're out of the Champions League. They're getting one or two players back. And I can just see Liverpool pushing really hard for that top four place now.
No, we are in strong agreement. I think we brought that up in the last couple of weeks. I've added to my position that the price just was never fair, right? Like it was always the ceiling for Liverpool in terms of what they can accomplish is always so much higher than the price. Although I do wonder if it's worth betting it now more or waiting until after this Manchester City result, because that's pretty a pretty fantastic game. And I guess let's get your opinion on that. Man City comes in as a huge favorite. We're looking at minus 175 right now versus Liverpool at 4-1. The draw right now plus in the three-way market is plus 310. Do you have a sense of what to expect in this game in terms of is it going to be business as usual for these two teams because they are so professional, or could there be a little bit of a slow start here considering that there's been such a long layoff and we've thrown a little bit of cold water on these guys?
Well, it's 12:30 on Saturday, and funnily enough, lots of those games always tend to start quite slowly in England for some reason. Maybe it's that kickoff time that we talked about. But whenever Manchester City play Liverpool, whether it's at Anfield or at the Etihad, these games are always of the highest class. And Liverpool always tend to play quite well there. There was one game when they lost 5-0, but that was because Mane was sent off very early and the whole thing fell apart on them. But Manchester City at the moment, we know what they can do. But Liverpool have got real talent in that side. And those two clubs have gone head-to-head with each other over so many years now. And I can see Liverpool rising to the occasion on Saturday. I think Manchester City are favourites. But if Liverpool went there and did something, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Quick question for you on this game. So let's say Liverpool come out empty. Do you think they still have a chance to finish top four, or this game is really important to pick up at least a point?
Well, I think if you ask me in about 10 days' time, we will know the answer to that, because Liverpool have got a huge week coming up. They've got three massive fixtures. They go to Manchester City on Saturday. They then go to Chelsea on Tuesday. And then the following weekend at home, they've got Arsenal. And of course, we all know what the stakes are for Arsenal. So Liverpool now, I think, are reaching an absolutely pivotal week in their season. I think if they can come out of this with, say, 4 points, maybe even better than that, I think that will really set them up to go forward. But I think we will know a lot more about their chances at the end of these next three games, because I do think this is now the most crucial period of their season.
Key final question about Liverpool then. Have they solved their defensive woes, given what you've seen in the last handful of matches? The results would say yes, but it could also just be the level of competition they were playing.
I think they've had problems in midfield that has led to defensive problems as well. I don't think there's any doubt Van Dijk is not the player he has been this season. And also Trent Alexander-Arnold is having dreadful struggles at right back. So I wouldn't say they have solved their defensive woes yet. I'd like to see more evidence of that. And let's just say they will be put to the test on Saturday if Erling Haaland is fit. If you've got any woes, he's liable to make them worse for you.
Absolutely. Well, we have another top 6 match, Newcastle versus Manchester United. Newcastle is actually the favorite at plus 135 on the three-way money line. United is plus 190 in the draw set at plus 240. This match is interesting to me because all season I've talked about how Newcastle have struggled to score. Now Alexander Isak seems to be fully fit and he is playing absolute brilliant football. Do you think Newcastle has what it done to get all 3 points out of this match?
I think they do. And if you've ever been to St. James's Park, that atmosphere will be absolutely fantastic when they play Manchester United. They always give Manchester United a very warm reception when they turn up there. And I've been really impressed with Newcastle because I was at the EFL Cup final when Manchester United beat them. And there was a sense at that point that Newcastle were losing a bit of momentum. The players were looking a bit tired and maybe they would fade away. But since then, they've had 2 really important wins. They beat Wolves at home. And then, of course, that big win at Nottingham Forest. Yes. Sealed by the player you've just mentioned, scoring from the penalty spot in about the 93rd minute. So I think Newcastle are right in the mix of the top 4. And I've been impressed by the way they recovered from that Wembley defeat. And I can see them. They've certainly got big chances against United this time, definitely.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good matchup. On a matchup like this in general, I would look for the draw price, but at plus 240, not quite enough to get me interested or involved. So that one's going to be one to try to watch and find a live angle, I think. But just a tremendous match. I have to ask you a key question here about Man United. It feels like a million years ago. This team was dreadful at the start of the season. We were making jokes. We were all having a good laugh. What can you attribute to the way that they've turned this thing around? And do you think, as far as a rating goes, that they are truly one of the top 3 teams in the EPL?
I certainly think they'll finish in the top 4. Whether that means they'll finish third, I don't know. But I think they're favourite to finish third. You're right. They made that terrible start to the season. They lost at home to Brighton. And then it was absolute carnage at Brentford, wasn't it? They were 4 goals down by half time. But I think Erik ten Hag management was superb after that. He brought the players in on a Sunday and he told them that Brentford had run 13.4 kilometres more than them in the game. So he told the players they were going on a 13.4 kilometre run. And not only that, Ten Hag joined them. And it almost like it was a mental message he was sending to the players. Look, we're all in this together. I'm here. I want to make you better. And the next game they played Liverpool at home. Liverpool had handed out some right spankings to them over the years, and of course did one a couple of weeks ago. And they beat Liverpool, and it just got Manchester United's season going. Rashford, who last season, you mentioned how bad United looked last season. There were people questioning whether Rashford would even be staying at Manchester United last season. Now, they'd want him in the golden handcuffs, wouldn't they? Have a big contract if he would sign it. So they're not quite there yet. I mean, we saw what happened when they played Liverpool the other week and lost 7-0. In one of the strangest games I've ever seen, because it was actually a very tight game for 41 minutes and then ended as the most historic defeat in the fixtures history. But Manchester United are certainly on the right track, and I think they've got the right manager. I think that's the big difference. I think they've got a manager who is in charge. He's shown he is the boss by what he did with Ronaldo and also by punishing Rashford when he was late for a team meeting. He has stamped his authority on the club and the team. And I do think they're not there yet by any means, but I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, Ten Hag seems like the guy for the club. So you know quite a bit about Manchester United and Liverpool, so much so that you wrote a book about the rivalry. Can you tell us a little bit more, and what is your favorite memory on the red-on-red rivalry?
Yeah, sure. The book is called Red on Red, and it's 10 matches detailing the rivalry between the clubs, but there's also lots of politics and culture and fashion and even music in it. It's a bit more than just the football. So we try to get to the heart of the rivalry. I suppose if you ask me for my funniest memory of the rivalry, it was when I was working at the local paper in Liverpool in 1988, I think it was. And there was a very tempestuous 3-3 draw. And Alex Ferguson was in the corridor where we were allowed to stand, absolutely criticising Liverpool, the crowd, the referee, everything. The next thing, Kenny Dalglish, the Liverpool manager, arrived holding his 6-week-old daughter in his arms and interrupted the interview with the words, you'd better speak to her. You'll get more sense out of her than you will out of him. So that was quite an interesting little incident backstage. And yet we spoke to other people who said, yeah, that all happened. Then a few minutes later, they were all having a drink together. But it was very funny to see Kenny and his 6-week-old daughter berating the great Sir Alex in the corridors at Anfield.
I love it. Well, talking about history, this really kind of brings up some other questions, some other thoughts. I know you famously publish a list of top 10 matches that you got to be witness to. This is now a few years in the past. Yeah. Is there an update to this list? Anything in recent years really stand out to you that qualifies as top 10 in your mind?
Absolutely. My criteria was I had to be at the game. I had to be physically there covering the game. So straight in, maybe at number 2 behind Brazil 1, Germany 7 would be the World Cup final in Qatar in December. That amazing game between Argentina and France, which for 80 minutes was relatively routine. The Argentina winning 2-0. And then the whole thing just exploded into life with Mbappe scoring a couple of goals. And then extra time was utter chaos, chances at both ends. Yep. Then the drama of penalty shootouts. And of course, the narrative that went with it was Messi, redemption for Messi to finally win the World Cup, the trophy that had escaped him and he'd lost in the final in 2014. And of course, the heir to the crown, if you like, Mbappe, a man who scores a hat-trick in a World Cup final and still ends up on the losing side. So many strands to that story. So I would say if I was putting my charts together, that would probably come in at number 2 now, behind Brazil 1, Germany 7, which I think I'll be very fortunate to see anything ever more dramatic and emotionally charged than that one, because it was obviously in Brazil and the home fans were all there. But yet, certainly, if you ask me for one game, that's straight in.
What a great game to be at. While I was sitting on a bus in Mexico watching on my phone with spotty internet connection. Oh, no. It was lagging. Man, I could only imagine what it was like to be at that game.
Honestly, there was an atmosphere of almost hysteria. And if you remember the game itself, it went into extra time. And Mbappe equalised late on, like with 2 or 3 minutes to go to make it 3-3. And in the last couple of minutes, there were 4 chances, 2 at one end, 2 at the other. It was utter chaos, trying to think of how you were going to write it. And then, of course, the penalties came along. And we had the story that I think lots of people in Qatar wanted, which was an Argentina World Cup win. Because when we arrived in Qatar, the one shirt we saw all around in Doha and elsewhere was Argentina. You didn't see any Brazil or anyone. They somehow latched onto Argentina as their team. So it was a popular victory in Qatar. And of course, Messi's millions of admirers around the world were very happy with it as well.
Yeah, seeing Messi lift the World Cup trophy was the best sports moment of 2022. And I don't really think there's a close second. It was just, as you said, redemptive, emotional, especially on the heels of how frenetic the ending of that game was. Yeah. It was just quite awesome. So that one will go down forever memory for me too. So very cool story. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on the final match. Everton versus Tottenham. Everton plus 240 on the 3-way money line. Tottenham coming in at plus 115. Draw at plus 240. We know Antonio Conte is gone. Do you think that Tottenham get the new manager boost and can do what it takes to get all 3 points at Goodison Park, or are they in trouble?
Well, I think the way they've gone about their business recently, I think they're in trouble. I was at the AC Milan game when they were so poor when they went out to the Champions League. They were chasing a deficit, and it looked like nobody had told them that they were losing 1-0 on aggregate. They just carried on playing for a draw almost. I think in the end, Conte was going in the summer, and what he said after the Southampton game brought things forward. Brian Mason is back in charge now with Conte's old assistants, and it remains to be seen, really. I have my doubts whether Tottenham will finish in the top 4 now, because they've just looked devoid of any real inspiration for so long this season. And I think Liverpool might come on strong. I think Newcastle, are in there fighting, as we know. But there's certainly a goal for Tottenham to fight for. They are 4th. It's not all bad news. But there's that atmosphere of instability and chaos around the club at the moment. And I'm not sure that ever does anyone any good. And it's a tough ground to go to, Goodison. Everton have improved at home under Sean Dyche. So that'll be a tough assignment for them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phil. Where can people find you on social media, and what projects are you working on right now?
What projects I'm working on? Well, I'm doing my day job, which is the chief football writer for the BBC. So I'll be at lots of matches coming up. I'm at Manchester City-Liverpool on Saturday. Then I'm at Chelsea-Liverpool on Tuesday. And just by coincidence, I'm at Liverpool again on the following Sunday. But that's more of an Arsenal story, possibly. And I'm at Phil McNulty on Twitter. So you can find me there. And hopefully there might be some decent information or updates or whatever on the Premier League and International and Champions League, because I do all of that as well. So keep myself nice and busy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Phil, and best of luck this week.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, gents.
Well, Drew, it is opening day. New MLB season, new rules, new stars. So pair it with the Roto World Baseball Draft Guide. Get all the player profiles, rankings, and projections you need to hit your draft out of the park. Go to NBCSportsEdge.com/draft guide and use PIN25 to save 25% at checkout. Drew, I am excited for this part because I'm a total degen. All I think about, all I dream about is betting on sports. So I got to hear, what's your favorite bet of match week 29?
Okay, bear with me, Brad. We're going with an under 2.5 in the best game of the weekend. I'm going to take under 2.5 in Man City-Liverpool. Phil kind of alluded to some of the angle here. The long layoff, the early start, all of this really tends to throw a lot of cold water on offense, particularly the early portions of a match. I think that on top of that, the fact that you have no Foden available here for Man City is a little bit of an offensive, pop, and that Erling Haaland is not 100%.
Yeah.
Haaland is dealing with, of course, a groin injury and is questionable. I think all of this puts Man City in a little bit of a tough spot where they have to make this a defensive battle. I don't know that Liverpool ultimately gets a win or even gets a point in this one. But my most likely outcomes for this game are a 2-0 win for Man City, a 1-1 tie, and a 1-0 win for Man City. Those are sort of the three, modal outcomes that really pop here. Guess what all three of those have in common, Brad? They're all have under 2.5 goals. So I'm going to take under 2.5 at plus 130. And while I will certainly be tuning in and hoping for an entertaining match, I hope it is of the defensive quality that we are talking about after it is a wrap.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they push Erling Haaland to the limit. They play Southampton, and then they have the Champions League match, the most important match of their season against Bayern Munich. So with a groin injury, any kind of muscular injury, you don't want to tempt fate. You don't want to push it too much because you need him for that home stretch of the Champions League.
We agree. What's your look?
All right, so Drew, I'm ready. I'm totally ready for this bet to backfire, for all of the internet haters to come out and tell me I'm terrible at what I do. But there's just too much value to pass up on this. And this is Nottingham Forest versus Wolves. I'm taking Nottingham Forest draw, no bet, plus 100. I gave this out on VSiN at plus 110 last night. So it's dropped 10 cents. It's which is a massive drop. But we have to be, pretty serious about this Nottingham Forest team playing at City Ground. The City Ground is one of the hardest places to play this season. And what we've seen from Forest throughout the season, as the season's progressed, they've gotten better. They've improved. They have a lot of guys who are questionable, but I think in the long run, they're going to end up playing guys like Emmanuel Dennis, who had that absolute pure class in their last match. They might get Awoniyi back. He's questionable. Brennan Johnson, Morgan Gibbs-White, they have so much offensive firepower. And what's great about this team at the City Ground is only one time this season they failed to hit the back of the net. And Wolves. Let's talk about Wolves for a second. Wolves have conceded 6 goals in their last 2 matches. Normally, you would think about this as a get-right spot for Wolves, but you'd want the roles to be reversed. You'd want Wolves at home and Forest on the road, but it's not. They're playing at the City Ground. So I'm taking the value here. That's draw no bet for plus 100. For those who don't know what that means, if the game results in a draw, you get your money back. But if Forest wins, you win your money. And if Wolves win, you get to bury your head in a pillow and scream and say, why did I follow that, Brad? But I absolutely love this bet as my favorite bet of the week.
Let's go tricky trees.
Yeah.
I like this. And I guess can you give me your opinion on this real quick? The number of injuries across the Premier League is kind of astonishing. And the fatigue of having to do all of the international play during the break and just the length of the season and the cold water, kind of taking all these guys out of their routines. Should I just be round robining first half unders this week? They're all going to hit, aren't they?
You should probably take all first half unders and all draw no bets at plus money. I generally don't have more than maybe 1 or 2 bets after international break, especially this year because they also had the World Cup international break, which is way more soccer than these guys would play on just your standard qualification international break.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that feels like a fun angle. We'll check in next week and let you know how it goes for me. If I'm bankrupt or if I'm checking in from my yacht, you'll know what happened.
Yeah. Make sure you send me a selfie from that yacht. Drew, as always, this was fun. Guys, don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you who are watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. For Drew Dinsick, I'm Brad Thomas. I wish you the best of luck.